Hi there, welcome back. Today I'm going to be interviewing Vivek, a business intelligence analytics developer with Trappist Group in Mississauga. Vivek has a lot of experience and will be taking us through his journey to being a developer. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. See you in the video. Bye for now. Hi Vivek, how are you? Thank you so much for agreeing to talk to me, to agreeing to be interviewed by me. We went to school together, so it would be awesome to hear your journey through in the data industry, especially because we did the same thing, but we dived into different places. And there's always that question about data science, data analytics, data engineering, BI. They're very different, even though they intersect. So it would be nice to hear what your own journey is, how you got there, what the career prospects are. So I'm really excited to hear your journey as well. So let's get into it. Who is Vivek?
First of all, thank you, IJ, for having me here, and it's really exciting to be talking to you again about interviewing about data and our careers. Who is Vivek? So you know me pretty well, but for your viewers, Vivek is an analytics and BI developer based out of Mississauga. He lives in Canada for 3 years now, and he's from India. He's been into analytics for 5 years now. So yes, that's Vivek. I love to read a lot. I love to explore the city here. Since I'm new to the country, I pretty much like everything about Canada so far. So yeah, that's me.
Right. Nice to meet you. So, how did you get into this field of analytics? I hear that you say you've been in this field for 5 years. I know that you had started your journey in Canada at about a year ago. So, did you study something related to the field? How did you get into the field of analytics?
Right. So I started my journey into analytics back in, I guess, 2014. Right. So that's the time when I graduated, from my business school. I got a bachelor's in business administration, and I was looking for a job. So I got my first job as a business analyst in India's biggest company right now, TCS. That's really where I even heard the first time data analytics being an industry by itself. Before that, I knew statistics, we knew data, we knew math and stuff, but we never knew that, well, I never knew that, analytics was such a huge industry. So that is where, I got my first taste of what data looks like. How do you use it? How do you uncover insights out of it? And that's where I began. So I worked there as a business analyst, got promoted as a senior business analyst, all that within 3.5 years. And then I moved. I was so interested in the field, of course, that I wanted to study further into it. But as a lot of people would agree, it's hard to find the right education. No one degree that will make you a better BA. So I just wanted to explore what's the education like here in Canada, right? So I came here. I took a course in business analytics, St. Lawrence College here in Kingston. That's where I got some of the advanced data knowledge around stuff like machine learning, around writing deployable code, how AI really works, ethical AI, and stuff like that. So once I graduated, I was pretty lucky to get my offer letter right at the day I finished my last class. So yeah, and then I went. I'm working at Trapeze, and as a BI and analytics developer. It's been almost a year and a half here, and it's been good so far. One of the other things I've throughout this 5 years span, I have also been working as a as a part-time data guy here or there, which is really where I got most of my knowledge, right? It's not just books. You need to be doing stuff constantly. So there have been startups that I've been involved in here or there, and that's literally my my journey in analytics so far.
Right, that's really nice. I hear the reading part, the learning part, the wanting to know what other data, what the data industry is really like, and you ended up not delving into data science per se. You're more on the analytics, software development side of things. So tell us more about like what you do from your day to day, because someone sitting down watching this wants to know how it's different, because you learned about machine learning, but you're not doing machine learning in your day-to-day job. So someone wants to know, how is this different from a different data concentration in the industry?
Basically, when you talk about an analytics or BI developer, what you're really looking at, is pulling data from several sources and not necessarily making a model out of it, or something that's gonna make any prediction, but representing it in a form at in a certain place. It could be a monitor in your screen in your company, it could be a dashboard for a bus driver at in a city, right? So how do you take a data from a bus sensor, you calculate math on it, and you put it in the hands of the CEO, that anytime he looks at the screen, he's looking at the latest numbers, right, or the latest business KPIs. So that's really what I do on a daily basis. The areas are different. So the company I currently work for is makes software for public transit industry. So typically I deal with bus data coming in at every second, and then this data needs to go for let's say for someone like a dispatcher or a garage person who knows that this bus is gonna be full in 5 minutes. So you need a different bus to be on that route. So all this has to happen within 1 minute, or the passengers are already complaining, right? So if you see what happened here, no model prediction, no data science, but data came in, an insight was generated, and an action was taken within 1 minute. So that's really what is a part of my role, and which is what I love the most.
That's good that you love your job. Yeah, that's really cool. So for this job that you do, is how do you get into this? Is there, I know you had said there's not one degree to it, but like how do you get into it? What do you need? What skills do you need to be a BI analytics developer?
Right. So again, so you basically, any data job, I believe, you need the skill to understand a table first of all, right? You need to understand the basic units of data. It could be a table for the most part, or it would be a message, or an array or a variable, right? So you first build a knowledge into that, right? Like in your knowledge on those stuff, right? Like how is my data, is it is what form is it, how is it gonna come to me, right? So that meaning you need the knowledge of data sources, right? It could be APIs, it could be databases, it could be SQL, it could be an Excel file. It doesn't have to be a rocket science. So first you identify where do I find data, where do I find data. If you are just starting on into any line, you see, I think I understood data better when I looked at the sources, not at the files, right? Because how does the source generate this data, right? So yes, that's important, finding this source. The second skill to that is understanding your variable. So well, you have a table, what does it represent, what is it in the business perspective, right? Is that already in KPI, right? Is it already telling me something that I just need to pass on, or is it something that I need to clean up, right? So then comes your transformation. So first you get your sense on sources, then you, as soon as you look at data, you should know, do I need to clean it, do I not need to clean it, is it something that's already coming cleaned or not. The second part to the the whole thing is then understanding the business implications of what you're doing. So a lot of people say developers are behind the scenes, they don't really have to take business decisions. Trust me, once you become a BI or or any sort of developer related to data, there are important decisions you make in your code, right? You make timeouts, you make certain variables, you fix assumptions somewhere in your code. So these are business decisions, one form or the other, right? So you understand what does the business really need, and then you leverage your skills, for example manipulating data or transforming it to convert that business logic into code or into just a Power BI visual, for example. It does not always have to be a code.
So, BI, as we know, or for those who don't know, it's business intelligence, right? So, how are you different from someone who, because I have friends who are BI specialists and they create dashboards for executives. And I hear you say that you find some form of insight, but I don't hear you talk about the dashboarding, the design part of it. So, how are you different from a regular BI person who just works with like BI tools like Tableau, like your regular Excel or Power BI and those tools? So, what makes you distinct from those people?
When you say a BI analyst or a BI developer, it's not limited to BI tools. If you are someone aspiring to become, have even a basic job in BI, let me tell you that it's not limited to that tool, right? Because you are not always going to be pointing at a Excel file, fetching data from it and making visualizations out of it. Basically, anytime you look at a dashboard or you look at let's say you get a project, they ask you to make 5 visuals. That looks pretty easy in any BI tool, right? Tableau, Power BI, whatever it is. But imagine how you would get this data, right? Where is that data? How is it gonna land here? How frequently do I need to go back and get the data? So refresh cycles. Is the data gonna be clean or not? So that is what differentiates my job from a BI analyst or just a BI developer. That not all the data out there is ready to make visuals on, right? So some data is so huge and so complex. For example, just imagine, I'm giving an example. Right now, in a city like New York or Chicago, there would be around 100 to 200 buses sending, messages to a database that we are at this location. So this is like millions and millions of rows every hour, right? So a Power BI or a Tableau cannot connect to that database and just start doing the magic there. You potentially will need to like Databricks or some sort of, or Spark or something like that, that could manipulate millions of rows, make it into a nice data frame and give it to your Tableau or your Power BI sheet that would use it. In fact, I see BI tools being only 30% of the job, right? Well, I would say 30 to 40 to the max, because like there's not much you can do if you haven't had the chance to wrangle data outside of it.
Yes, so that means you have to do some data engineering in your day-to-day job, actually in your everyday job. So do you have to code for that? Because you know what, a lot of people, like when people come into my to ask me questions, they're like, I actually love the data industry. I've seen a job called BI something something, but I don't want to code. So I think I want to do the BI part of it. So do you have to code? I think people are waiting for that answer. Do you have to code for your job? Because I hear you say Spark, I hear you say Databricks, I hear you say all these things. I'm hearing you say databases. So do you have to code?
I think I'm gonna break a lot of hearts today, but but to be very honest, my answer is yes. It's, you won't die if you not know code. But I think to be the smartest BI analyst out there, knowing code wouldn't hurt. It would give you a lot of edge over other BI analysts, right? Because just imagine Power BI is like, or Tableau is, even they have languages within them. Like Power BI has Power Query inside it, right? Which to use it, if you wanted to do something complex with it, you're writing code in one way or the other, right? Or Tableau has expressions in it to do anything in there, you are again using code, right? So you need to know the concept of variables, for loops, data frames, what are they, and then eventually you might start coding, start writing code. So yes. And if you, I know about, people not being able to write code, or not, are pretty much scared of writing code. But I think every time you do it for a purpose, it could be code taken from the internet. But if you solve a problem, that you actually had, and you use code for it, that remains in your brain. So, and I'm not saying go use SQL, go use Python. If you're using something like Power BI or Tableau, you'll know, when you make, complex transformation within those tools, you remember those steps. So eventually you are gonna become more friendlier to code and to read it and to use it.
Oh, I see. So what you're saying is that as far as you're dealing with these dashboards, it's advisable, even if you're not a back end person per se, it's advisable to just understand those codes, right? It's good to be able to handle some form of code. So you can't necessarily get away with not coding in the BI industry.
Exactly. Then you are looking at a whole bunch of, I would rather code, basically. Because there are things that, if you can imagine a whole Power BI report that you worked on for 10 days, and you come across a problem, right? That could only be done in Power Query or M Query, which is Power BI's language, and you don't know that language. So are you gonna waste the whole 10 days of work that you already invested? No, you are eventually gonna want to work on that. So I would say, I'm not saying go out there and learn code, but keep a broad mind that, if you just keep avoiding that thing, that might hurt you bad after 5 years, when pretty much everyone would have had some flavor of code in their life.
Right. So if you want to be a BI professional, even if you don't want to be back end, you need to learn some code. So we all know this. They don't teach you code in school. And even if they do, it is like the easiest. It's not the same as they teach you 2 plus 2 in the class and then you see this linear equation in the exam. So tell us, where did you learn coding? Like, what online resources or what resources did you have to go to turn to learn how to code?
Like everyone else, I started my first code at I was actually a person who was not very friendly with code. I was like, I can't be a programmer because this is logic I can't write. But when, as I said earlier, when I was working as a business analyst, I was seeing people invest 5 days, 7 days to make an Excel report, and invest 3 days on top of it to analyze it. I'm like, didn't you just waste like 8 days? So that's where I realized that all this has some power to automate, and I started professionally learning code in SAS. I do, base SAS 9. I'm a certified professional. I took my exams, so that's where I learned. Well, SAS. I don't use it right now. It's been 5 years I took that certification, but what happened in the process is I got idea of data structures. As I said, variables. How do you write code that makes sense, right? So yeah, that's where I first learned code. And after that I have written like SQL, Python, sometimes Spark, mQuery. All that knowledge came from online resources. Like I used Udemy a lot, I use Coursera a lot. What I also make sure, every time I buy a Udemy course, which are generally cheaper than any other course, I start a project with for myself. So I say that if I'm gonna start learning computer vision on Udemy, which is only gonna give me like 20 lectures on it, I start with a computer vision project already in mind. That okay, by the end of it, I should be able, I'm gonna collect pieces and make that. I don't care about the course, right? These 20 videos are not gonna teach me that, but they are gonna give me enough knowledge to go and Google, right? That's what you really need. So that's one thing I want to say, anyone who's taking online courses, don't be limited to that. Once you do an online course, you don't know that thing. You start an online course, then you start a project, actually working alongside parallelly with your online course. So you retain the knowledge. I think that's how I pretty much am able to code today.
Yeah, so you did a lot of hands-on projects, even if they were not projects that were big, but they were related to a job. They were projects that you found, even if it's a small project to start with, so that you can get yourself going to learn how to code, right?
Exactly. That's again another, there is another misconception people have, that do I need a big project? Well, a project becomes a project when you see an outcome and you set a timeline. That's a project already. Now you need, right? It doesn't have to have affiliations or a team, as long as you can make it workable, and that becomes your project portfolio, right? I would say take online courses, make your projects, make it into a portfolio, and then you never know, when you are going into jobs, you are going with a website and a portfolio instead of online course certificates, which is much more demeaning than the projects you could have done.
Did you have to have a certificate to apply for this job?
No, none of my certificates worked. I mean, I have them. Sometimes I put them on the resume, or but it doesn't really work. They're not looking for it. Basically, all they're looking. If you're in an interview that's 3 hour long and you could solve 80% of it, and you are good and confident while solving it, or you can't solve it, but you can give the reason. Hey, I don't know that because I don't know this, and I can find it via Google. That's all they care for, right? They don't care if you know it on the top of your head, right? So the certificates I don't think they matter.
I hear you about the buses. Your project is around buses, right? Is it just in Canada or Canada and the US?
It's mostly North America and some Canadian cities. Yeah, well, yeah, both of them. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So can you like give us like a a day in your life? Tell us, what do you do from bus to the end? Like I just want to hear, so that someone has a clear idea, like these pieces that you've put together in your role, if you get what I mean.
Right, right. So, how this really, in my team or in my, workplace, how analytics works is, different transit agencies have different things they want to track. It could be their bus vehicle health. It could be if the buses are on time, if the buses have enough passengers, especially in this COVID situation. You won't believe, since the last 2 months, we are making tools that could help agencies analyze what amount of ridership have you lost because of COVID, right? So essentially, what I'm dealing with daily on a daily basis is data coming from buses, from sensors. So it's IoT data in a way. This data lands, sometimes it's, if a client is pretty big company, they have their own infrastructure that lands the data, and it's transformed and ready to use basically. But sometimes if it's a smaller company, we actually get this data on the cloud, cleanse it, transform it, and based on what the company wants to track, we provide this BI solutions or analytic solutions that we deploy on the production scale.
Very interesting work you're doing. I've heard like the overview, but this is the first time I'm hearing it. So I'm no, I'm wowed. It's really cool. So tell me, what last words would you like for the end of this interview? What would you tell an aspiring young professional out there? How do I get started? So they will have questions like, what coding language should I start first? What BI tool should I know first? What should I study in school? So just any general advice that you could give to them concerning how to get into this field would be nice.
The first advice I would give actually is to make yourself, a, I don't know if I will be using the right term, but it would be a data person. Well, not a person who has data job, but person who is constantly doing something about data, right? You because for example, you don't need to be taking online courses back to back, but you could switch your music when you take to your commute. You can switch from music to podcasts, right? Because you need to listen to data stories that you eventually want to be a part of, right? Every time I've heard a podcast, there's not been a single day that I haven't found something that sometimes I'm not a data scientist, but I still like to know what they do, right? I like to see what problems there exist in the data industry, right? So yes, make yourself into a data oriented person. Anytime you look at something, you think from a data perspective. The other thing is, as I already said, take as many online courses as you want, but do practical project work alongside. There is no good language, no good tool. I remember when I was starting off, as a like a data programmer and stuff. I was always an enthusiast of R, right? Like R is the best language, this and that, and I had my ears closed. No, Python is not good and stuff. But now I'm like, oh, why was I even using R? And maybe after 2 years, I would be saying the same about Python. So it's not about the tool at all. It's about, practical places where that tool could help you. I think that's the only advice I have for the viewers.
Well, it's not only, it's a very good advice. To copy, or what I hear is, have a problem solving mindset.
Yes.
You want to go into this with a problem solving mindset, and then everything will kind of fall into place, and not like don't be be a broad thinker. So I like the advice, I like everything, and I really want to thank you for agreeing to be my interview.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you, IJ.